Welcome to Exploring the Variable Site Part 3, Building a Single Stage. In previous lessons, we explored how to get this stroke segment to follow our mouse as we moved around. Today we're going to focus on this text effect down here where the headers sort of roll in and out and that little paragraph text fades in. Now I'm referring to each one of these sections as a stage because these are the various stages of complacency and it's sort of the verbiage that they use as well. I'm going to go ahead and select this word growth, right click, inspect, and what you're going to find is that the word growth here, you'll see they're using two span tags, all right? And we're going to sort of copy that structure inside of a heading, but I also want to point out this data complacency stage equals 1 attribute. And if we scroll down here, we'll find stage 2. And then inside of stage 2, what you're going to find is that we have another set of double span tags. So we're not going to be copying everything exactly here, but we will be taking some inspiration. Let me close my inspector. And one more thing I want to show you is that you'll notice that this text here is quite small and that it doesn't really change when we change the size of the browser window, all right? That text isn't getting any bigger at all. And when we go down to a very small size, the page sort of reloads and this whole chart is going to sort of turn into a bit of a carousel, all right? Totally different. So I'm not really going to focus on the responsiveness. The point of this lesson is to really just pick out some of those key elements that we really like in this chart and do our best to explore how they're made and sort of build a quick prototype. So let's get going. All right, so let's start out by looking at the HTML structure and CSS. We're referring to these elements here as a stage, all right, because they represent different stages of the curve. And inside of the stage, we're going to have a heading element that is going to contain basically two span tags so that we can scroll them up just as we saw on the variable site. Right now, inside headings, there is just one span here. And then below the headings, we're going to have a paragraph with just that little piece of text there. Now in the CSS, we do have a blank rule for stages, which is going to wrap around our multiple stages when we create them here, but we want to focus really on the stage and heading tags right now. The stage is set up with a little bit of padding, a fixed width and height, and a dark gray background color. The heading element has its height set at 30 pixels with a little bit of padding on the top. To get a better sense of the space it takes up, I'm going to add a background color of purple. And now you can see where that div begins and ends. Heading on down to our span tag, all we're doing now is setting the font size at 24 pixels. Now we want to have two span tags in here so that this one can scroll up and out of view as another one comes in from the bottom. So let's go into our span tag here and I'm going to copy it out and paste it. And what you'll see is that we now have two span tags next to each other. To solve this dilemma, I'm going to go into my span rule here and I'm going to add display block. And now you'll see they sit one on top of each other. I want the second span to be a different color, so I'm going to target it with a new rule using .heading span with the nth child selector and pass in the number 2. And let me just set the color to F39. And now you'll see the second span is a bright pink. Very nice. Now that we can see how it's all set up, I don't want to be seeing that second one all the time. So I'm going to go into the headings rule up here, or I should say heading, and I'm going to add overflow hidden. Now we don't see anything outside of that defined space of the heading, and we can go ahead and comment out background purple, and now we're ready to animate. So in the JavaScript panel here, I have code set up that creates a timeline for me, and we're selecting the stage element, adding a mouse enter event listener that's going to play the timeline, and when we mouse leave, we're going to reverse it. All fairly standard stuff that you don't need to see me typing out. Now the first thing we want to do is animate the headings element and move it up so that we can see the second instance of this stage 1 span here. So inside my timeline, I'm going to tack on a tween that targets the headings element, and I'm going to move it up using y% -50. Now what's going to happen, if you caught it, is that the animation is going to play automatically. However, since I have that event listener code in there, I should be able to roll off to reverse and mouse enter back on to play. Very nice. We don't want it playing automatically, so let me just add a paused true to the constructor here. And if you're new around here, this just means that it's going to move up by half its height. While that animation is happening, I'm going to add a from tween that's going to target the paragraph that sits below there, okay? So I want to make sure you could see that, and I'm going to target it using .stagep, because chances are we'd have other paragraphs in our document, and we're going to come up from a Y of 10 and an opacity of 0. And we want this tween to start at a time of 0 using the position parameter. So now you'll see that that paragraph is hidden, and when I mouse enter over here, see that? How nice is that? So slick, and it's just like the variable site. Now, although it's going to be a very subtle change, what I found out in some experimentation is that I really liked an in-out ease on both of these tweens. So what I did was add a default object and set the ease to power 2.in-out. Now I encourage you to experiment with those settings, but you may see here that it's a little bit different, but it's one of these things where you really have to experiment with it on your own. By setting it in the default object, this ease is applied to both these tweens, so we can treat them both equally. And again, I just really love this result, and I think you will too. In the next lesson, we'll add multiple stages to our document. I just love how this effect looks when we have multiple stages coming in and out. Now, I would encourage you to go ahead and maybe try to create this on your own with what you've learned today. You'll of course have to edit the HTML a bit and the CSS, but those skills are really important as a creative developer. Of course, I'll show you how to do it all, but again, I encourage you, take the challenge, because in the real world, you'll be doing a lot of this on your own. See you in the next lesson.